Welcome to the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast with your hosts, Matt High, Richie Kopech, and Joe Capozzi. Welcome to the lair. And welcome back to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast, joined tonight by Joe. I'm your host, Matt High, ready to talk some week one heroes and zeros. NFL football is here. How are you doing tonight, Joe?
Well, I've been better, Matt. I can tell you that. For
That's a
everyone
loaded
listening,
question.
we just finished our Heroes of Fantasy Football redraft, which is where it all started. I had picked 10, and I took with my first pick, because he fell to me, Travis Kelce. So I am a little sad tonight, but I'm hoping that he just sits out this week as a precaution, and I hope he comes back strong next week. I don't want them to rush him tonight. I mean, he's probably, I know he's fine, but I know he probably has some swelling on that knee. So just take the week off and come back next week.
Yeah, it's not a long-term injury. I think George Kittle is the most recent tight end to have that. I think it was like 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure he was out for like 2 games, came back, and was just typical George Kittle. So I don't think this is a long-term thing. I don't believe this is Kelsey showing his age at all. It's just a freak thing that happened in practice. They're managing it. He could still play. Jason Kelsey, his brother on the podcast, said that he thinks he could play. A little bit different, but we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm still excited that football is back. Just doing these episodes is a lot of fun because get the fantasy football juices flowing. Everyone's looking for start sits. This is the time of year where decisions are made, and you got to live or die by them. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So, quick question: let's predict some waiver wire guys that, based on their week one performance, you're going to look for in week two. These are guys maybe you want to beat the people to the punchline and get right now instead of waiting. So who's a guy you think is going to be a hot commodity come week two?
My hot commodity, if he didn't get drafted in your leagues, which I don't think he probably should have, unless you're a super deep league, is Jaden Reed. He's the wide receiver rookie on Green Bay. News today that Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are both out with hamstring injuries. Not out for the game guaranteed, but they're not practicing at all right now, which is never a good sign when the first game is this Sunday.
Yeah, they're
Even if
highly questionable.
they do play, hamstring injuries are tough for wide receivers. I could see them being on either limited snaps or not playing at all as a precaution. That immediately moves Jaden Reed to the number one wide receiver slot. Um, he could have a blow up game, and I could see him being the top waiver pickup for week two. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, no, I mean I think that's a good call. This Packers offense is going to be. We're gonna have to peel back the curtain a little bit, and it'll be a little harder if either or both sit. But we're gonna see how Jordan Love looks. That the ship is his now. Aaron Rodgers is now sailing away. So we'll see how that rolls. But my guy's gonna be Michael Gallup. Another year coming off an injury. Another year removed from injury. Sorry. On a team that I do think is going to be really, really good this year. The Cowboys through the offseason, you always heard, they don't want to score a lot of points. They want to rest their defense. Well, their defense is really good. And all the moves they said, all the moves they did leading up to now says they want to throw the ball. It says the opposite of kind of what people are thinking, where they wanted to be a ground and pound team. They just released Malik Davis, Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn. I think Ronald Jones is still there somehow. Everything to me says they're going to throw the ball a lot. Week one, they're going against the Giants. This is a division that's kind of up in the air. There's a lot of, people are expecting the Giants to take a step forward. Cowboys are always up there. Eagles, obviously, last year, are one of the best teams in football. So there's a lot of chances for them to be in these shootouts. And I think Michael Gallup is going to be one of the guys that shows up, has a decent week one, commands targets in this offense. So I do think Michael Gallup would be a good pickup. If you got a deep bench, if you got one of these guys on IR that are rolled out already, go snag him now because it's easier to get him now when no one's thinking about him than after he blows up week one and everyone's blowing their fab or their waiver priority on a guy like that. So, what do you think about the Cowboys this year? I know we're Giants fans, so
Uh,
yeah.
I think they should be pretty good. I feel like Michael Gallup he falls into that category that I put Tyler Boyd in, where he has that wide receiver two talent at a wide receiver three position. Because of course Boyd he has Chase and Higgins in front of him, and then you have Gallup that now has both Brandon Cooks and C.D. Lamb in front of him. They both fall in that position. Just they're just one injury away from being like a super valuable fantasy asset. And even when both of number one and two are healthy, both we've seen Boyd blow up and have crazy games, even with Higgins and Chase still there. So I could see the same happening for Gallup. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't know. I know I did like Pollard rushing, but I don't know how he's going to do this year. So I do think they might lean a little more towards the pass this year. So we shall see. But I like that pickup.
Yeah, it's really just about kind of getting ahead of the game. If you can get one of these guys and they pay off, either shore up a position, flex. I mean, we're talking these guys are flexes. You're not throwing them in your wide receiver one or two slots unless you are absolutely desperate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes all you need is 1 week, and these are guys that could provide that for you. So, all right, so let's jump into the news here. There's a lot of it. Let's start off. We already touched on it. Travis Kelsey hyperextended his knee. Status is in doubt for tomorrow night against the Detroit Lions. I know the Lions are starting to shift a little bit because they're expecting him to miss, but who knows? Cooper Cup, this one hit the other night, was visiting Minnesota. This actually broke right before our draft, and we are all wondering how far he was going to fall. Fell to the end of the second round, and he was in Minnesota to speak to a specialist about the setback on his hamstring injury. Has just been ruled out for week one, and the news that broke says there's a potential he could go on the IR, which would mean he misses 4 weeks minimum. So I am really scared of Cooper Cup this year because when he's on the field, he's amazing. There's no question. No one will tell you differently. And if they do, like they're wrong. Like we know that for a fact. He's great when he's on the field. Problem is, there's too many things surrounding him that have a bunch of red flags. We have Matt Stafford. There was talks he might not even be back this year. Early in the offseason, he might have retired. He's back. He has a lot of injuries. So then you got, I don't even know who the backup quarterback is because no one really cares. Is it Wolford or Stetson Bennett, who was also ruled out? Like it's not really great over there. And then Cooper Cup is an aging wide receiver who has already had a major injury in the past. Now getting banged up already. It's You're hoping. It's a big risk right now because if the Rams aren't good this year, what are they playing for? He could either be traded or shut down. Now I don't think that's going to happen because it's Cooper Cup. He's going to want to play. That's his mentality. He wants to be out there and play. So it's still kind of wait and see approach, but hopefully you have an IR slot on your in your league, and if you have him, throw him there. But what are you thinking about Cooper Cup this year?
Uh, he's a tough one. I don't know how long he's going to miss games. Um, yeah, it's really just a big question mark right now. I could see him being out for 3 to 4 weeks. It all just depends on the severity of the injury. So we'll see when he comes back. I think he'll play this year. I just don't know when. And I could see it being 4 weeks, and it could be more. So it all depends.
Yeah, I mean, if you have Cooper Cup, I feel like you want him to sit. You want him to
Yeah.
heal up and get right. You don't want him coming out week two if he's, 75% because that's where you're going to get the re-injury risk, where it just skyrockets in probability. So you want him to sit, you want him to get shut down for a little bit, heal up, come back, and then he's just Cooper Cup again.
Yeah,
But I
that's
don't.
what you ideally want.
Yeah, it's not fun because you probably drafted him in the first, second, third. I feel like maybe in the fourth, depending on how scared your league mates were to draft him. But it's one of those things where happens every year. There's always one person that gets an injury dip, and you gotta shoot your shot. So if you did it, hopefully it works out for it. Jerry Judy is still questionable for week one. Um, I have a feeling he is going to play, but basically the opposite of what they're doing with Cup. I feel like they're going to throw him out there, and I wouldn't be very gung ho about starting him. We'll say just because I don't like starting injured players, and if there's a risk that he's on the field, and that's what's going to happen. He's probably going to get injured again, and it's going to be worse. So again, just sit out week one. I know it sucks, but heal up, get better, come back, and be the stud you were. So we got Deion Jackson is named the Colts starter. They're gonna probably go with a committee approach. I don't see how they can't. Um, Jalen Waddle, this one is interesting. They popped up on the injury report today with a groin injury. That's not very good. That's going to be a should be a high scoring game going up against the LA Chargers. That's going to be a lot. Could be one of the best games this week if everyone's healthy. And right now, I would be a little hesitant and worried about Jalen Waddle. Monitor practice reports tomorrow and on Friday. If he plays, then I'm good with it. Could be rest day today a little bit. They got to put something on the sheet. Um, but we'll see how that rolls. Now, you already touched on it. Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs are questionable with hamstring injuries. Popped up today. We'll just wait and see. Again, monitor practice reports, and we'll see what happens there. That's gonna be a fun game to watch too because the owner is no longer there. The owner of the Bears, so that's gonna be very interesting. Aaron Rodgers jumped ship, and now we're seeing which way they're steering it. But all right, so you ready for the main event here, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, so we're going to be doing our heroes and zeros for week one. So, as a reminder for those who watched last year, these are guys that are outside of the top 12, 15, 20 at their position based on week one rankings. We're going to be looking at some of these guys who we think you should play, who are going to beat their ranking and what they're going to be doing this week. So, we're just going to pick three names each. We'll do those, and then we're going to do zeros. So these are basically sits or just guys we want to put a little caution in your mind with, maybe some lower expectations. Um, some of these guys you're not going to be able to sit, especially when we get to bye weeks and things. But just some things that might go against them that, you're not going to be doing what they typically do, what you drafted them to do. So why don't we get rolling here, Joe? Who is your first hero of the week?
So my first hero for this week is going to be Khalil Herbert, running back on the Chicago Bears. We kind of briefly touched on it just before. Of course, with the Green Bay number one wide receiver and number two wide receiver being giant question marks for Sunday's game, I could see the Chicago Bears just starting to run away with the game. When you run away with the game, go up points, and when you go up points, you just want to run the clock out, and that's where Herbert's going to come in. He's going to get those 5 yards here, 6 yards here, just running the clock out. I could see them trying to. I could see them even getting far enough ahead that they take not Herbert, Fields out of the game, and just putting the backup in. That's how much of a blowout I think this game might be. I could be wrong, but I see Herbert just being a tremendous fantasy asset this week. I think he's going to get at least one touchdown, and I'd give him 60 to 70 rushing yards. So that's my hero for this week. Just purely based off of Green Bay missing those two wide receivers, falling behind, and the Bears just having a dominating run game.
Yeah, I mean Herbert played well last year. I know he was my breakout guy that you should be looking and he's one of my sleeper picks. Look at late rounds. It's a guy that's going to get the ball, and they're going to give him every opportunity. And this week, I don't think it's going to be like as much of a blowout, but I do think they're going to have enough time to run the clock out. I don't think they're going to lose this. They're going to be ahead for a while. So I like the pick. That's a good one. Mine comes off of kind of the Cooper Cup injury, and I'm going to go with Tyler Higbee versus the Seattle Seahawks as my hero of the week. And reason being, we saw it last year. It was the Rams' plan was throw to Cooper Cup. If Cooper Cup wasn't open, throw it to Tyler Higbee. Well, now you get rid of Cooper Cup, and the plan is throw it to Tyler Higbee. I see him getting 8 to 10 targets this week because they're going to be behind. The Seattle Seahawks are a good team this year. They're going to have to catch up. The only way they're going to know how to do that is throw the nice, easy dink and duck passes. And that's where Tyler Higbee eats it up. I think, especially if you have Travis Kelsey, which I know you did this. So kudos to you. You had Travis Kelsey. You didn't want to wait. You picked him up. You're starting Tyler Higbee if Kelsey sits. That's the kind of person where he was drafted probably outside the top 10, top 15, maybe tight ends. This is the time to play him. Don't think about it too hard. I know it's a little weird because you don't want to start players on really bad offenses, but with Higbee in a PPR league, he's going to be a machine this week. They're going to be looking at him all over the place. I don't think their run game is going to be able to get it done. So Matt Stafford is a guy, he just wants to. It kind of reminds me this year is going to be similar to the Ben Roethlisberger year. The last year he was a Steeler, and it's going to be a lot of short passes over the middle, close to the line of scrimmage, and he's going to be looking for Higbee every other throw. So I think he could be a PPR machine this week. So definitely start him up. Don't think twice. Just set him and let the points roll in. So I know you did it. So anything to add about Higbee, sir?
No, I have. When you first told me yours, that was originally going to be one of mine. As someone who drafted Kelsey in the first, and of course with his status being majorly in doubt, um, yeah, Cup's out. There's not much to write about over there in LA on the Rams for them to throw to. I think Higbee's going to have a major game, and that's why I am more than happy to play him and Kelsey's absent and have him as my tight end too. Um, I mean, I think he has tight end one upside with Cup being out, and who are they going to throw to on that team? Van Jefferson. I mean, eh, I'd much rather throw it to Higbee. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
and that's basically going to be their game plan. Sean McVay is going to look at Stafford and go, "All right, go get coffee and breakfast with him this week because you're going to throw to Higbee. Like, just
Yeah.
do it. Don't think. Just throw to Higbee. If he's not open, just throw it out of bounds." So, but all right, who's up next here for your next hero?
My next hero is going to be Sky Moore, wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs. Kind of also playing into that Kelsey injury. Patrick Mahomes is going to have to throw the ball. We know Patrick Mahomes is arguably the best passer in the NFL right now. Um, he's got Tony there, who me and Matt, I mean, are very biased towards because we both hate him because we're Giants fans. But I also don't think Tony is that tremendous of a talent, and he's also almost never on the field. I give him 5 games before he gets hurt. You got Scantling there, older player, okay. But Sky Moore is the one that really jumps out. He had a pretty decent rookie season, and I think this is the year that he really takes that step up with Pat Mahomes. I think he's going to be looking towards Sky Moore a lot. Tony's going to probably draw that main back coverage, and that's going to really open it up for Sky Moore to get those fantasy points. Um, with Kelsey being out, I could easily see Sky Moore being Patrick's favorite target. So that is why he is my hero for week 1 of this season.
Yes, one of these guys is. I mean, it's Pat freaking Mahomes. He's going to get it
Yeah.
done no matter who he's throwing the ball to. If Kelsey's out, it's gonna have to go somewhere. And I know Sky Moore didn't have the best rookie season, but for a Andy Reid rookie wide receiver, it wasn't absolutely terrible because we always see in Andy Reid offenses the rookie wide receivers don't really do much. That's just kind of how it works. They don't have that play because they don't need them. They do a really good job of getting players in that they can fill positions, and that's kind of what happened last year. Another year in the system without their top option potentially spreading the ball around. Sky Moore should see a decent amount of targets this week and have the ability to just outperform what everyone's projecting for. So I like the pick. I do think he's the guy that benefits from Kelsey missing. I don't know who else. Him and probably like the running backs and stuff. But all right, so my hero number two is Miles Sanders versus the Falcons. Sanders is the new guy in town. Signed a 3-year deal this offseason to join the Panthers. They have a rookie quarterback in Bryce Young, who we saw it with Jameer Gibbs in Alabama, likes to check the ball down. This is a team that has come out and said they want Miles Sanders catching 50 balls this season. I think they hit the ground running. It's going to be an This is the first game Bryce Young is going to play, so he's going to be looking for just staying upright, staying healthy, and getting the ball moving. How else do you do that? You throw to your running back. That's what we see every year. A lot of these rookie quarterbacks like to target their running backs at a higher rate than some of the other veterans because they don't have the arm confidence yet, being new in the NFL. Occasionally you get a guy like Justin Herbert that just comes out slinging the rock like it's nothing, but I don't think that's going to be the same thing here with any of the rookie quarterbacks this season. So Miles Sanders goes up against a really bad defense in a game that should be competitive because they're both, in that not great zone as far as offensive positions. So I do think Sanders is going to be a solid play this week. I expect him to probably hit about, 80 plus rushing yards, add in a couple catches for maybe like 30, 40 yards on a team that is going against a poor defense that's going to be able to probably score. This could actually be like a decently high scoring game because both defenses aren't that great. Uh, and both offenses are kind of iffy. There's some pieces in both, but we'll see how it goes. So I like Sanders. He's just coming off the groin injury. He was cleared today. He's back, ready to roll. 100% confident in throwing him in my starting lineup as an RB2 this week with RB1 upside. So, all right, who's next for you, sir?
Yeah, no, I love that pick. Um, Miles Sanders, top tier talent, running back with a rookie quarterback. Any team with a rookie quarterback is going to want to run it, overthrow it. So I really like him doing this week, especially. I think a lot of people were hesitant on drafting him because he was question mark with that injury, but I was never worried about him. I think I took him in a few drafts, so yeah, definitely like that pick. My third hero this week is going to be ETN Jr., running back on Jacksonville. Um, we all It's kind of no shock that he's a top tier talent, but the main thing is why I picked him for week one is that Jacksonville is going against the Colts. Personally, I'm not a big fan of rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson. I don't think he's shown me enough in preseason to tell me that he's the guy to be the franchise quarterback. And I don't think he's going to have the most stellar, amazing week one that some people are predicting he's going to have. So, in that case, I think the Jags pull ahead. Etienne, not only is he a dynamic running back, but he's also the best pass catching back in Jacksonville. So not only is he going to get those PPR points for you, if the Colt Jags do find themselves ahead, they're going to be running the ball more heavily, and that's where both Tanks Bigsby and Etienne are going to get more points. And I think Etienne it might be. I think he has potential of being in the top five RBs week one.
That's pretty bold because I feel like a lot of people are a little bit lower on him, but ETN is set up for success this week, especially. You know, the Jags are a crowded offense. Like let's not think they're not because they have Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, they got all these guys, Christian Kirk, Evan Engram. It's gonna be sometimes difficult to figure out who has a good day, but I think more often than not, all of them have a pretty good day. There's always going to be like maybe one or two guys that might be the odd man out, but overall, this offense projects to be very very good. We've been saying it the whole off season, like draft these guys because they have a really good chance to beat their ADP, no matter where it is. Like Calvin Ridley, I think I had him in my rankings going into the season as my wide receiver 14. He could easily beat that because that's the kind of talent he is. Christian Kirk is another guy. Like Travis Etienne is set up this week for success. I do agree with the Colts point. They're probably going to be behind, and I haven't seen anything from Anthony Richardson that makes me overly confident, except for the rushing ability, um, which we mentioned in one of our previous shows. That even if you don't throw that well, it doesn't really matter because if you can rush the ball, like you're good. So he doesn't have to get the ball. He doesn't really have to get it done through the air. So it's going to be one of those times where they're going to be just running the clock out on the Jacksonville side. So I like that pick a lot. I think he's gonna do what people think he has the potential to do this week. So I like it. My guy, I know we both like DJ Moore going against the Green Bay Packers. He's a guy that in the beginning of the offseason after the trade, I wasn't really thrilled about it because really the offense was different. They don't throw the ball enough, but I tried to think back to last year when I didn't think that Devontae Smith and AJ Brown were going to be that great, and I had egg in my face because I forgot what the process is. Quarterback struggling but has potential. Bring them in with a top option at the wide receiver position and just see if they take the step. This is the next chapter in that book of quarterbacks who weren't great that turned into great. So Justin Fields and DJ Moore are going to be guys that you're going to want to start every week. And you're not going to really feel too bad about doing that because DJ Moore has always been one quarterback away. If he had a good quarterback. Well, this is the year we're going to find out. All those other years with, Cam Newton, all these other guys, I still think Justin Fields has the potential to be a better passer. He was someone going back into that draft. I was very surprised that the Niners passed on because I thought he fit that system really well because he had the rushing ability, but also, the pocket presence. And I did think his arm was pretty good. He was a very talented quarterback. And now we're fast forward a couple years, he's got his top option in DJ Moore. I think the sky's the limit this year. He's going to break fantasy. He's going to be the next coming of Lamar Jackson as far as a dual threat quarterback, and DJ Moore is going to be a major, major part of that. They're going up against the Packers this week. Like I said before, I was joking before, the owner's no longer there. They have a statement to make, and they're going to make it. This is the week that it doesn't matter what the score is. They're going to go out swinging, guns blazing, ready to roll. So DJ Moore, fire him up and just sit back and enjoy the show. I know you're a big fan of DJ Moore. So
Uh,
anything to add?
I am a big fan. It makes me sad that I parted ways with him before the season started. Wasn't a player I was looking to trade, but the deal I really my dynasty team needed running back depth, and he was the one player that I got asked about, and we did part ways. But no, I do think DJ Moore is going to have a great season. I'm actively trying to acquire him back. I think once this person's team starts tanking a little bit and they start selling their pieces off, I will be able to get him back, but we shall see. Um,
Not if I get him first.
he said I'm first in line, so and I already know what he kind of wants for it. So,
I'll
but
make
yeah,
him
no,
an offer he can't refuse.
I'm big on DJ Moore, and I did have the Fields Moore stack, and I got rid of it, and I kicked myself a little bit for it, but I did get a second in Dobbins, who Dobbins looks really good this year. I'm excited for him, so we'll see.
Alrighty, so now to put our negative Nancy hats on. So I apologize to all the Nancys, but time to go a little sad. Zeros of the week. So as a reminder, these guys are maybe not full sits, especially week one. But guys, just to think things might not be as rosy as you think they are. So, Joe, who's your first zero of the week?
My first zero for the week is Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver on the Seahawks. We just got word that he's going to be playing week one, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid of him. I don't want to touch him week one. This is a guy that's coming off a broken bone in your wrist. I saw him practicing out there with a cast on. Good news for his health long term wise, but for a week one game after that injury, it makes me wary of how many reps they'll actually give him. Um, I know they have him as the wide receiver two behind DK. I could see him being more as the wide receiver three behind Lockett and DK this week until he actually kind of finds his groove into that offense and they know he's fully recovered from that injury. He just makes me wary. I would kind of stay away from him this week. Let's see what he can do first in a real NFL game, and see where he kind of falls in line with DK and Lockett in those targets and how Gino's going to spread that ball around.
Yeah, it's hard because where you drafted him, he's either a flex or hopefully a bench spot on your team. He has the potential to come out of the gate swinging, really show up on the NFL fields. I don't know if you saw the play he got injured on, but it was like a 40 something yard catch that went down basically at the one. It was at the goal line. So another 6 inches or so, that was a touchdown. And someone with that ability is hard not to put in your roster because there's gonna be weeks where if you don't have that player, you lose. And it putting volatility into your roster as you make it up every week, sometimes you get the good and the bad, but when it's good, it's real good. When it's bad, unfortunately, it's also uh, equal and opposite reaction. Get a little science in here, but it's it's hard because I really believe in the talent of Jackson Smith and Jigba, but this week I agree. I would not start him unless you're absolutely desperate because he could be on a snap count. You know, coach speak is one thing, and Pete Carroll is a guy that frustrates us in the fantasy industry every year, every week by doing things that just are complete opposite. You got to read in between the lines with when he words come out of his mouth because it's real weird. So I wish I didn't say that, but like I really like JSN. Just week one, it's going to be tough. You got to have some stones to play him week one because I don't think they're really going to need him this week either. Like I think that this is going to be a blowout. I don't think the Rams are going to be able to do much on the Seahawks. So we'll see. I just want to see him on the football field. So
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think long term he's going to be a tremendous player on that team. I'm just wary of him week one.
100% agree. So I know when we were talking before, we were going through our guys, and you said this is bold, and I agree, but I also have some things to back it up. So my zero is going to be Jahan Dotson this week against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is mainly because I don't think the Cardinals are going to be able to move the ball at all against the Commanders. And basically, they could be done by halftime. Like this could be 30 something up at the half because the Cardinals have Joshua Dobbs starting this week. That doesn't bode well. Zach Ertz is limited. Like the pieces there aren't that great. Their offensive line isn't good. The defense is bad. So in games like this in the past, like look at last year, prime examples of Houston Texans. You didn't want to start your wide receiver or your quarterback against them because it was over by halftime and then you just ran the ball. So they allowed the most points to running backs. Well, Jahan Dotson isn't a running back. So this is going to be a Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson game because they're not going to need anyone else. So unless you get lucky and he breaks out a play, broken tackle for a touchdown, the stat line is going to be pretty boom or bust. So I would not want to put him in my lineup and think that great, I got the wide receiver 1 or 2 on this team getting a lot of targets because I don't think there's going to be many targets at all. If Sam Howell has to throw more than 25 times, I'd be surprised this game because that's the game script I'm projecting for it. So I know you really like Jahan Dotson, but what do you think about playing him against the Cardinals this week? Like, do you think this is going to be a blowout, or do you think this is going to be somewhat competitive?
I don't know how I feel about that one, Matt. Um, it's tough. I don't think it's going to be competitive, but I also don't think it's going to be as much of a blowout as a lot of people think. I think it's one of your most bold picks that you made. I've read a few articles, CBS and a couple other big time sports starts and sits. I've been reading everything, and a lot of them have Dotson as their start for the week. So you're kind of going against the grain by picking him as your sit. And I kind of agree with the big guys and kind of go against you. I am kind of biased because I do have Dotson in the dynasty, and I'm been a big fan of his. But I do think he's going to see a lot of targets. As terrible as I think Sam Howell is, I think he's serviceable enough to get Dotson and McLaurin the balls to get them these fantasy points. And I see Dotson getting a touchdown this Sunday and maybe even more. So
Yeah,
um,
like I don't think he's going to absolutely tank your week, but I just don't know if he's really going to be that necessary because this the Cardinals are not going to be good, especially this week. So, how much do you get lucky with a first quarter touchdown, or are you just hoping, or is he going to be the guy that Terry McLaurin gets a touchdown, and then Brian Robinson gets a touchdown, and then the game's out of hand, and they're like, "Yep, let's just run the ball." So that's all, but we'll see.
I see where you're making that argument. I do, but I just think, yeah, I just think against Arizona's defense and him, I think he's gonna have a good game. I would start him, but
We shall see. So
we
who's
shall see.
your next guy?
My next sit, and this one hurts me a little bit to say because I think I want to say I drafted him in 1 or 2. Did I draft him? I'd have to look. But my next sit's gonna be Ramondre Stevenson on the New England Patriots. The reason I'm choosing him is there's recently been a lot of discussion that number one, Zeke might see a lot of that goal line work, which if I'm a fantasy owner, scares me. If Ramondre's getting down there, but then Zeke's punching in those touchdowns, almost kind of like what we saw Jamal Williams kind of do with Swift, um, that means you're losing out on all those fantasy points. Not only that, but they're also playing the the Philadelphia Eagles, who arguably have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They just drafted Jalen Carter, who's a tremendous player. We've seen videos of him at camp just destroying. I wouldn't want to run against that guy. I'm sure Ramondre Stevenson doesn't want to, and I don't think he's going to score as many fantasy points as people are kind of predicting him to score, especially this week against the Eagles. It might get better against less like some worse defenses, but this week against the Eagles, I'm if you have a different option to put plug in at running back, um, I would go with that option. I'm fading Stevenson. I think between Zeke being there and maybe poaching goal line touchdowns, as well as the tremendous defense of the Eagles, it's a no for me.
Yeah, like I don't think anyone who drafted Reminder Stevenson can sit him, but I do think it's going to be like a floor play this week. Like his ceiling is not going to be there. So unless the Eagles just aren't as good, they do have the change at defensive coordinator. So there's a possibility that it's different as they're working through things. They got, a pretty young defense, but it's not going to be pretty. And it could be one of these weeks where if Stevenson gets you 80 yards, you're like, okay, I, I'm okay. We know he could do more, which is why a lot of people drafted him pretty highly. But this is not the week where his ceiling is going to show up. His ceiling is way too far away here. So I agree. I don't think it's going to be as pretty as people are hoping. So I like that pick. I got James Conner as my next zero of the week. Sticking with the same game. This one is, yes, he's going to have volume, but kind of like your Stevenson pick, his ceiling is not going to be there. I don't think this offense is going to have the capability of moving the ball, and they're going to have to throw because they're going to be down. And Connor is great, but unless he's getting 40 carries and a bunch of passing work, I don't see the upside for playing him this week. Even if he gets five or six targets, I going against this defense, I don't think it's going to be that fun. So I really think that this is going to be one of those picks where if you have to play him, you're just hoping for like 6 or 7 points, and he might not get there because it's going to be brutal. I'm not excited to watch the Cardinals offense at all, and I don't think a lot of people are this year because there's going to be some growing pains this year with the Cardinals until Kyler comes back. I know that's still up in the air if he is or not, but we'll see how it goes. So, are you kind of going back to the last conversation when we were talking about Dotson? Do you think Connor's going to be able to get anything moving on this team?
I think I think it's a tough call. I don't. I really don't know. I think if you have another option and you can avoid playing James Conner, I would. But I also think that he's a perfectly okay fantasy option. Maybe not this week as much, but just until they find that answer at quarterback, I think they're going to fall behind in a lot of games, which is never good for any running back. But if you look at the running back depth chart there, I think it's pretty clear cut that James Conner is the guy there. It's not like Najee's battling Jalen Warren, and then you have Kamara has Jamal Adams there. It's kind of like it's pretty much James Conner. And when you draft a running back and you have him being like the guy there, it makes you feel pretty comfortable with playing him, even if they're a kind of crappy team, because he is going to get fantasy points, even if it's not putting up RB1 numbers like Eckler or McCaffrey. He's still going to get those points, which is really what you're drafting him for, especially if you're going like a zero RB draft strategy and you're getting him later in the draft. I think he's perfectly serviceable. I can agree with you on a sit this week, just because the Cardinals are so iffy, and we haven't seen him play yet. I was really hoping Clayton Tune was going to get the start. I still think that's a possibility, depending on how what's his name Dobbs does. Um, it could happen. I'm excited to see Clayton Tune play. I'm over Dobbs already. I think I think he's a.
It could happen this game.
It could happen
Like
this game, so don't
if
hold your breath.
Dobbs comes out and throws just a couple picks the first quarter, you could see Clayton Tune coming in second quarter or the
Yeah,
second half.
I'm hoping that because I picked up Clayton Tune off the waiver. I'm hoping it's a Brock Purdy situation, and he comes
Oh,
out
I
and
don't think it's gonna be that
he
situation,
just
but
starts slinging it. You never know, man. I take I
uh,
take I took a lot of shots on quarterbacks. I picked up both Skylar Thompson and Brock Purdy last year, and Skylar did get the start for a couple games. I mean, granted, he didn't do as well as I'd hope he did, but I mean, look at Brock Purdy panned out. He's now the starter and beat out Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. So you never know with these guys. I got a couple. We talked about that on a past episode. I got a couple sleepers down there, just
yeah.
hoping to get their shot. I mean, you compared Aiden O'Connell to Tom Brady, so
I
we'll
want
see.
just for the record, that wasn't me comparing him. I was
You
reading
called
off
him
someone
Tom
else's
Brady
comparison.
reincarnated.
His his release was compared to
Ah,
Tom Brady. That was it. But
I
either
heard you
way,
say Tom Brady is back in the NFL, renamed
yeah,
as Aiden O'Connell.
yeah. Either way, it doesn't matter. All right, so who's your last guy here?
My last guy, and it pains me to say his name because he's such a good player, is Michael Pittman Jr. Um, I just have way too many questions about Michael Pittman Jr. to put him in my lineup right now. I mean, if you look at his past like drafts, he was going. I'm pretty sure we've seen him go in the first, second round of some of our fantasy leagues. Um, but now Anthony Richardson's there. That's a giant question mark for me. I might just be an Anthony Richardson hater, but even if I am a hater, and even if he proves me wrong, you even talked about it. Anthony Richardson's main selling point is that he has tremendous rushing upside, which does not help Michael Pittman Jr. because is Michael unless Michael Pittman Jr. is tossing him the ball to rush, that's 0 points for him, and that makes me very nervous. He's been plummeting on draft boards, rightfully so. Even though he's the wide receiver one there, if he's not getting thrown the ball, and if they're not throwing the ball, it's no fantasy points. And the passes that I saw Anthony Richardson make in the preseason did not impress me enough to comfortably start Michael Pittman Jr. in my fantasy lineup week one.
Yeah, we see this. The history of this is if you have a rookie quarterback, they don't sustain, top production at the wide receiver position. Then once you add in the rushing, that makes it even worse. So Michael Pittman could be a perpetual zero. He could be the zero of the season. Because I don't think he's gonna have like 1 or 2 weeks because every wide receiver has one of those games where things just kind of shift the right way and boom, they're a top option. But to chase that, you're going to be a dog chasing your own tail. So I don't think I would. I didn't draft Michael Pittman in any league. I bypassed him like the plague. So I agree 100%. He probably won't be on the zeros again just because everyone will know at that point that he is a zero. But, I mean, he's really talented. It's just the situation's just not there for him. And I wouldn't be confident at all, even as a flex for for him. So I agree with the pick. It's going to be interesting this year watching this Indianapolis Colts team, especially with or without Jonathan Taylor. Like, who knows? That's still undetermined. So not great, Bob. Final guy here is going to be Pat Fryermuth going up against the Niners. I don't think that it's going to be a lot of fun to play him. Kenny Pickett has looked awesome this year in the preseason, but say what you will, it is preseason, and it's one of those times where I really just don't know if it's going to be one of those games where you want to take the risk and get one of these guys and really play him because again, I don't see the upside with it, and it's going to be. I just don't know what to expect. He could be a top option, but you got George Pickens hype going around. You got Deontay Johnson. It's it's one of these where he could come out and play pretty good, but it's it's all limited. And the Niners, they just signed Nick Bosa to an extension, so he's going to be running at Kenny Pickett all game. That doesn't bode well for Week 1. You know, the running game is going to suffer, and then if you can't get anything done in the running game in a Mike Tomlin offense, like he's not going to have the confidence going up against a solid defense like the Niners are and put together a good play. Now, in a PPR league, Fryermuth might not hurt you too much because he should still see the target share, but I just don't think his upside is enough to warrant playing him over some of these other guys. Like I would much rather play Tyler Higbee, you know, some of these other guys that were drafted, David Njoku, I'd probably play over him. Just better situations this week. So, any thoughts on the Steelers and Pat Fryermuth this week?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I really like Pat Frymuth as a player, but like you said, the situation is just so terrible where you have both him, Deontay Johnson, and George Pickens. That's a lot of mouths to feed on one team, and I don't think I don't think Kenny Pickett is like Patrick Mahomes in the regards that he's feeding everybody. I think he's going to go to his go-to guys, which usually is George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. And that could hurt Pat Fryman. Not saying that he couldn't have weeks that he blows up, but I think it's just gonna be too risky of a play for me. I'd much rather play either of those guys you just named, Njoku or Tyler Higbee. I mean, Higbee could be the wide receiver one right now with Cup out, and I see Njoku being the number two wide receiver option right behind Amari Cooper. Um, so both of those options seem way more appealing to me. And if you can pass on Pat Firemuth, I would 100% go either the guys Matt just said. Plus Higbee's, I picked Higbee off the waiver wire. I'm pretty sure in your now it might be different with Cup officially ruled out, but I'm pretty sure he probably went undrafted in some of your drafts. So go ahead and see if you can get him, and yeah, avoid him.
Yeah, those guys are going to be higher up the receiving depth chart on their team. So yeah, those are good. It's not like I really like Pat Freiermuth this on the year because I do think Kenny Pickett and the Steelers are going to take a significant step forward than they were last year. Their offensive line got better and all, but it's just we know the Niners defense is going to be good. Nick Bosa is great. It ain't going to be fun this week. So that's kind of where I just want to put a little caution in your mind looking at that. See if there's any of those guys are on waivers, pick them up. You might want to take the shot on one of those guys. So, all right. So now that concludes the zeros. We got a couple defensive streamers this week. So, favorite one is obviously going to be Washington against the Arizona Cardinals. I picked them up in our draft, and I was very surprised that no one tried to draft them. You know, I drafted the Eagles defense, so I didn't have to worry about defense every week. But this week, it's just hard to pass up. Then you got Jacksonville against the Indianapolis Colts against Anthony Richardson, rookie quarterback that probably is going to struggle with throws. Turnovers are probably going to be prevalent in that game. Then you got New Orleans versus Tennessee. Does Ryan Tannehill have it? Like that one might be a little bit lower on, but I do think that they could come out and have a decent game against the Titans. Baltimore versus Houston. You'll notice a theme. We're going to target these defenses against the rookies because welcome to the NFL. Here's a giant defensive lineman coming down for you and throw that pick up in the air. So then Seattle versus the Rams. This is obvious. Cooper Cup's not there. Where are they going to move the ball? Higbee's going to be fine, but Stafford's been known to throw interceptions and fumble the ball under pressure. And the Seattle offense defensive line is actually pretty good. I think they're going to be one of the more underrated defenses this season, and they're going to show you why week one. So, any other guys, or you like those for this week?
I fully endorse those picks.
There you go. You heard it from the man himself.
Can't go wrong
So,
with them.
got a couple start sit decisions here.
Although Nick Bosa just got paid, baby.
Yep.
So 49ers are back on the mark.
Yeah, that could be. They're definitely drafted, but you never know.
Yeah.
If your league fell asleep at the
Oh, they
wheel, they could
100%
be
got drafted.
there.
Just
We
saying,
got
if you did draft them, pay it off.
yes, yeah. There's a little hesitation to draft them because it's like, is Nick? Hopefully Nick Bosa signs, but he did. You're good. Start him. Don't worry about it. Start sit decisions. We got a couple guys here. I want to pick your brain and see where you're leaning. So this comes from Dennis at my work, actually. Isaiah Pacheco against the Detroit Lions on Thursday Night Football, or Jamal Williams versus the Tennessee Titans. Both good run defenses. Both should be decent offenses. One obviously better because it's Pat Mahomes. But where do you stand? Because I think my take is going to surprise you.
I think those are both. That's a tough question. I think they're both, like you said, they're both extremely good run defenses. I think I would lean towards Jamal Williams, and my reasoning behind that is the the Chiefs still have Jerick McKinnon and CEH. We don't know, although Pacheco was dominating that backfield towards the end of the season, we don't know how they're going to use all those backs yet. Whereas the Saints, we know Kamara's the guy, but with his suspension, it obviously falls to Jamal Williams. I'd rather have that clear cut, he's going to get the ball and be the runner than, oh, is it Clyde? Is it here's Jarek McKinnon, the catching back. Is it Pacheco? Who's going to be back there? Uh, that's that's the one thing I've always hated with the Chiefs, outside of Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, is when as soon as they're gone, it's like it's like rolling dice, and it's like, oh, he's gonna get the ball today. It's like you never know, and it's just a guessing game, and I hate it, and I try to avoid players from there if I can help it. But with Kelsey gone, I could see them running the ball more, but you just don't know which running back's going to be there. So for me, it's Jamal Williams.
Pat Mahomes is like the fantasy Oprah. Like you get the ball now. You get the ball and you get the ball. Everyone gets the ball. But yeah, no, I actually agree. I thought you were gonna go with Pacheco because I know you like Pacheco. But for me, I was going back and forth with this. Williams should just see more work, I think, and because he's pretty much the only guy in town. So that's kind of where I lean. I think both are good options. So either one, if you want to get in on that Thursday night game, Isaiah Pacheco should see enough work to make it worth your while, and he could, get into the end zone because the Chiefs should be in scoring positions as much as you would expect the Chiefs to be. So both are good options, but I think we both lean Jamal Williams slightly. So next one here, got some rookies: Jordan Addison versus the Houston Texans, or Zay Flowers. What do you think?
Um, just your last question, I don't know where you got that I like Pacheco. I traded him. I'm off the Pacheco train. Teams that draft running backs that late in drafts have no allegiance to them. Same thing with Damian Pierce. I was very scared of. I thought that they were going to draft a running back, but they ended up not. But on that question, I could be very biased because I'm such an Addison truther, but it's definitely got to be Jordan Addison for me. I love Zay Flowers. I think he's a tremendous talent. The only thing with Zay Flowers that scares me is he's technically he's the wide receiver 3 right now in that offense. He's behind OBJ, he's behind Bateman, and you got to remember they have the number 2 tight end in the league there, Mark Andrews. That's a lot of beefy boys over there to get the ball to, and it just until I've seen Lamar playing with all these guys and where the ball distribution is going to go, I'm taking the safer route with Jordan Addison. Of course, he has the number one fantasy asset over there, Justin Jefferson. But with Justin Jefferson being the number one asset, he sees the most coverage. That kind of opens up things for Jordan Addison. The number 3, I couldn't even name you the number 3. That's how unrelevant he is to that team. And then you have Hawkinson there, who's of course a tremendous talent. But if I had to take Mark Andrews or Hawkinson, of course I would take Mark Andrews any day of the week right now. So that's where my argument goes. I'm going Addison over Zay Flowers.
That was my mistake. I don't know why I said the Houston Texans. It's actually the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Zay Flowers is going against the Texans. Um, I agree partially. So I'm going to partial credit. We're in high school nowadays. You get partial credit. Um, Jordan Addison is primed for a great opportunity week one, and for everything you just mentioned, I do think Zay Flowers is going to sneak into being a really good option this week because the Ravens are going to have something to prove because this is a new offense. Like, forget the Greg Roman days where it's just dink and dunk, running out of bounds and fall down. Like, they're going to throw the ball, and I don't think it really matters who their opponent is. I think this is going to be a team that they're just going to throw because they can. And I think there should be plenty of targets and things to go around for everyone. And Zay Flowers is a great talent. Like, we saw this in the combine, we saw this in training camp. Zay Flowers, I think, is going to be the real deal, and I think that starts week one. So for me, I would lean slightly towards Zay Flowers just because I'm looking more at talent and opportunity, and I don't think you're going to go wrong with either one of these guys, but I give this slight edge to Zay Flowers. So
See, my hope is right, and I'll share this with everyone listening. I'm hoping that Zay Flowers week 1 doesn't do very well because he's behind OBJ, Mark Andrews, and Bateman. And I think people start to panic that he didn't do well week one, and I'm hoping to buy him at a little bit of a discount right after week one before he starts getting in that groove that Matt's talking about. Because OBJ is only on a 1 year deal there. Bateman injury is a concern, and Mark Andrews is getting older. I think Zay Flowers is very close to being the wide receiver one there. Could be this season, could be next season, but he's going to be that, and I'm trying to acquire him. And if you can get him for a cheaper price after the week one panic, do it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, final one, and then we'll wrap things up for tonight. Quarterback. We got Jared Goff versus the Chiefs tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football, or Daniel Jones versus the Dallas Cowboys. So one's got rushing, one is a statue. So I threw this one in there because I'm curious to see where your mind is.
I'm as much as I'm gonna say Daniel Jones. I'm so excited to see him play with Waller. I think he's gonna do very well with him. And I think just having Waller out there drawing that coverage, and you got Paris Campbell there now, you got Hyatt. I think having those weapons and being able to actually have real receivers on the team is going to open up a lot of room for Daniel Jones. That if he wanted to run the ball, he can. As long as he doesn't stumble on his 2 feet, I think he's going to do tremendously well. Golf scares me, especially they're playing the Chiefs, who we all know are a fantastic team. Not saying the Cowboys aren't, but I just think the Chiefs offense, in my opinion, is a little more dynamic than the Cowboys offense. And I even without Kelsey, I see the Chiefs just pulling ahead and the Lions having to kind of fall back to pass to try to get there, and them just being all over Goff. So that's where my head's at.
I'm choosing Goff. I want
Wow.
pieces of this game tomorrow night, and part of the reason why I'm going Goff over Daniel Jones is one, I don't really believe in Daniel Jones as a Giants fan. So
Well,
we've kind of mentioned that. I won't dwell on it, but
but don't put me on the Daniel Jones truther side either. I'm just saying
I know you're kind of in
between
the
the
middle.
two, I'm gonna
Yeah.
pick Daniel Jones.
I think Jared Goff is going to be one of these great values this year because he has Amon-Ra St. Brown. They just drafted Jameer Gibbs, who is going to catch a ton of footballs and be basically the running game through passing. David Montgomery's there now. I think that team is going to be very good. There's going to be a lot of points scored. Now I know they're going to Arrowhead. That's basically do or die um, for all these teams going into Arrowhead, but I just have a feeling that the Chiefs without Chris Jones going at him, he's going to be able to have enough time to do what he does best. Look for the open man. Amon Ra is a great talent, excellent route runner. I think he's going to be wide open. So I'm going to give the lean to Goff this week. It might be somewhat bold or hot takey, but I just want pieces of this game. And if it's Jared Goff, I'm perfectly okay with it. So I know that was a little surprising for you, but that's where I'm gonna go. Jared Goff, final answer. So
Yeah, so we're
fun there.
torn. We'll see who was right. I think you could be right on that one. I'm not but I do think that the Addison one, I think I got you on, and then
Yeah, we'll see.
we
We'll,
both agreed
we'll
on Williams.
yeah, we'll check back after week one to see how we did. Rich should be back by then, so we'll get his takes on things. But that's gonna wrap things up for us. Hopefully everyone has a wonderful week one. Hopefully you get those victories. We're here. Like, comment, subscribe, share, leave us a review. Any little bit helps. We want to make this thing grow even more. So we want to reach out and hear from everyone. So if you got to start decisions, just let us know. We'll help you out. So it's going to do things for us. Enjoy your week one. Football's back, baby. Here we go. So long, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Heroes FF.